A very good morning. Of course, it's not a good morning for the country as we are still mourning people in Chitezi. And yesterday we also lost one important dignitary, that is Tamale Mirundi, who has been a political commentator and analyst on affairs so it continues to happen in the country here. And we are still also really mourning that. And the news about the death of this man actually broke out around 11 p.m. That is in the night yesterday, but really we are still following up, and we want to say may his soul rest in eternal peace, and we also to continue to mourn with the family. And remember, this man has been battling cases of illnesses, and he has been also battling illness also that is under Kasero Hospital, where he has been admitted, and we still continue to mourn with the family, because this man really has been on the limelight, with many also really attributing him as one of those best political commentators in the country. And when it comes to commenting on issues in Uganda and issues that continue to happen in the country here, definitely we have been seeing him responding to some of those issues. And I will be telling you more details to that later on. But as we get to move on with the show, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you on board from wherever you are watching us from, be it here in West Nile Sub-Region, Nacholi, Lango, Karamoja, and other parts of northern Uganda entirely. Not forgetting those who are watching us also in the western districts of Bulisa, Hoima, Masindi, and many other parts in Fort Portal, and many other areas, Chiranongo, and not forgetting the rest. Also in there, we are saying a very good morning to you. And what about those who are watching us in central Uganda, in the districts of Kampala, Wakisu, Mukono, and many other places? We are still saying a very good morning to you. Welcome aboard. Not forgetting my comrades in Jinja. I also really take this opportunity in a special way to welcome you on board, because we do have many who watch us in parts of Jinja, Lugazi, and many other parts. We are still saying welcome aboard as we start off your day with also the KOKOLIRIKO live show, the Wednesday edition. We're in the middle of the week. That means today, it being a 14th into the month of, that is August, we are 2 weeks down. It's a fortnight already. That means we are just left with about some few weeks or so to wind up with the month. That is also where we are going to be entering the month of September. But how are the months moving? Really, I want to say the months already running so much in a terrible speed. Today being the 14th, which is already a Wednesday in there. That means the days are really running so fast. And we take this opportunity now to welcome you on board and say a good morning to you. Welcome aboard. And that is where we are going to be doing this with you. The studio for the newsroom team of AOL to come through and also let you know of what is happening in the world of news in there. And remember, so many stories going to happen. And yesterday we also able to also receive developing stories and developing issues that continue to emerge out of, that is the Chitezi landfill site where we lost people. And now information from there also indicates that also the area is actually developing more cracks. That means it is not actually any safe place for people to also continue residing in there. That means any time from now, if at all the people don't relocate, we may see any disaster suddenly happening in there, but we are not praying for that. We continue to say let people suddenly in there have alternative means of maybe relocating if at all the area is not any safe, because we don't want to see many lives being lost, because what we really saw is not really good, because many people losing their lives like that. It is really quite unfortunate that people's houses were actually broken down and many actually we are left homeless, and that is one thing also which we say happened in there. But we are still going to be doing that, and that is one thing also which we feel we need to also talk about. And now Democratic Party has come out to criticize KCA's new land for waste disposal. Is another story that we are seeing on the paper this morning. Remember, efforts were underway to actually make sure that people leave dumping at the Chitezi site for now and also relocate to a new place. And now Democratic Party has come out to also criticize the new plans and also a new place for the relocation of this garbage dumping site. And now the Democratic Party President Norbert Mao sharply criticized the directors over the implementation of the NRM-DP Corporation agreement, which was already signed 2 years ago, but has seen limited progress in there. Now, Mao urges that critics should direct their demands to what President Museveni is also really to whom the argument was made, rather than focusing on him in there. And really, that is one thing also we did see the DP also really talking about in there. And that is one thing also where we did see them talking about the issue of the garbage site that was already in Chitezi. Now the argument near is 2 years, and that is one thing we did see also Mao addressing on. That means we need to also make sure that we keep you reminded of, because many people we are actually asking themselves. We saw NRM DP agreement being signed, and which also really saw some people being appointed as ministers and as leaders elsewhere. But the argument that today may not have yielded very much. And now what is now the DP president saying, the person also we are talking about has actually come out to ask those critiques to also really look at President Museveni, not looking at him alone. And that is one thing also really when they look at the agreement, that is one thing also they need to look out for as they also really connect to also look at him in there. And that is one thing we did see. And also really we did see DP also coming out to criticize the KCC's new land for waste disposal in there. That is actually where we did see them also planning to relocate for now, because the Chitezi's landfill site has not been actually one area that is good, and with the rains we have seen the place developing cracks. And waste management, by the way, is one of those difficult activities, because waste, more so the Cavera, polyethylene and other bags, also really plastics, if at all not put well, they don't decompose, and that is how it becomes challenging. And with the rains today, we still see them remaining intact, and where does that also really put the lives of the citizens at? And I want to say many actually left, that is to be in fears, and that is how at the end of the day we see them also really finding it very, very much difficult to also really make sure that they move on with issues of development in there. But that is where we're going to leave that story aside, and still in relation to what continues to happen in Chitezi. We did see the Chitezi garbage catastrophe thorn our flesh. That is according to information from Minister Chofata Gobie, who actually also really say that also really caused a lot of also really panic for them in there. Now, the 4 days after mound of rubbish buried 24 people at the Chitezi garbage also field site, that's also in Kampala. The State Minister for Kampala and Metropolitan Affairs, that is Kabuye Chotafagobe, has admitted that also the issue remains a thorn in their flesh. In there, that means they are not any happy about what happened in there. Now, he disclosed that while appearing before the Presidential Affairs Committee, which was chaired by, that is Alex Bakunda Byarugaba, the Sinjiro North Member of Parliament under interim ticket in there, and he was flanked by the Permanent Secretary, that is of the President, that is Haji Yunus Kakande in there. That is one thing we did see happening, and Chitezi also the matter continues to also come out. But really we are saying, as we are still seeing more danger in that place, let's make sure that we understand the benefit of them relocating. Why am I saying this? Because if government came out to also really ask this people to relocate without also really this danger in there, many could not also really move away, because you would see people insisting that this is our ancestral land, this is a land my grandfather left, this is land my father bought, and this is land I've been entirely on. And that is one thing also really which would make it difficult for government to also really make sure these people are relocated. We have seen evictions when it comes to wetlands, and could this people also really accept this? Definitely, I want to say many could not also really accept this, with many also really going to oppose, and that is one thing also now we need to also make sure now they understand the dangers. Now that they have also really understood the dangers, let's make sure that we have places to also really relocate these people for, if at all government can also really allocate land, because government has lands elsewhere. Maybe government could also really make sure these people are moved on to, and really some small compensation also really would do enough, and leave that place, because that place also really is not any safer, because really sometimes you wonder if there's any outbreak of diseases, how are the people in there and how are they going to protect themselves? Because look at garbage that comes from Wakiso and Kampala in there and is being dumped in this place. How many tons of garbage are these every day? Because each and every time we are seeing motor vehicles carrying garbage proceeding that place. Because for us who have been in Kawempe, we have seen this also really, that vehicles carrying garbage also really in overload in there, moving to that site in Chitezi. And what does that mean? Because really, if you see now the trucks of garbage moving in there, now how is the situation at the site like? These are imaginations so really that usually come to our minds. But I want to say it is not an easy task with the rains today. I believe burning that garbage may not be easy for also the workers in there. That is how at the end of the day we see the garbage piling. And that means also really, I want to now encourage the people who are also really generating this garbage to also make sure that the garbage that they can burn, or garbage that cannot also really decompose in there, should also be disposed first of all in a safer place, other than also really waiting for these garbage trucks to come and carry this garbage and also take it in there, which at the end of the day is not good. And that is one thing also really which I feel I need to also really echo out my voice on. And speaking on the floor of Parliament, Minister of Kampala City and Metropolitan Affairs, that is Hajat Minsa Kabanda, told MPs that they had invested the trouble as early as 2018. But what did they do? Because if they invested the trouble ahead also really in there, but what did they do to make sure that people also really are safe? These are questions really that deserve answers. And Kabanda said the garbage collection point serves Kampala, Mukono, and also really Wakiso district was meant to be decommissioned, but they also really strived of funds. And that is one thing also really that could have caused all these problems, because if at all we could also really not relocate our funds for issues pertaining garbage management, it is really then a trouble. It's also really dismay as well in there, because garbage is actually one thing that garbage, either through burning or through turning also really that decomposable garbage into manure, because that is one thing also we have seen at the end of the day sometimes also be turned to. But what is really for us to also learn lessons from this, and this should go out to all the cities, most newly created cities, that also really they need to pick a lesson from what is happening in Stacey, and that is something which at the end of the day that would also really be able to also really maybe serve as a learning point for them. And that is where we did see also the survivors also commenting, and they said also really from Relief Disaster Preparedness and that refugees Minister, that's Lilian Aber, shows that also really so far 18 persons have been rescued. And on the other hand also we did see Prime Minister handing over 200,000 additionally to also what the President also promised to offer to the people in there, because the President came out and also offered 1 million also really help those people who lost their dear lives, and then 1 million each to the survivors who also really had trouble in there. Now also we have seen the Prime Minister also coming with 200,000 each for those people who were involved in the incident. These are 54 beneficiaries also really who also got emergency shelter, where the President had given them also really giving 5 million each in there. And that is one thing also which we are following up on. And remember, the situation there is not any good, but we have seen also really well-wishers also, and also organizations have come out and also really are helping people also really cooking food. I was able to also really see non-government organizations like Red Cross and also many others coming out to also now start cooking cooking food for the people, also to help them also maybe cool the pain as they are going through a lot. But I want to say it is not an easy moment. Losing your property, losing your house, losing your relatives on top is not an easy thing, and I want to say it's a trial moment. And for those who are actually there, I want to say may God give you courage, because it's not an easy thing. Because really, if you see people going through disasters are never good, and that is why we have a sole ministry, that's of disaster ministry, a whole ministry that is to prepare for disaster in there, and that is already supposed to be there to also really rescue people during the emergencies such as disasters in there. Because if you saw what happened, not only to these ones here, if you really remember what happened to people in Bududa, definitely you will be able to know why this ministry is actually very much important and why we must support it all times, because we don't know when disaster is going to befall us, and that is why it becomes quite tricky. It becomes quite difficult when the ministry is out of resources, and they cannot also come out and explain that we're out of resources and we're handicapped. And that is why I want to encourage the government now to give resources also to this ministry, because we have seen people losing a lot of property in fires, we have seen people also drowning, we have seen water killing people. All these are disasters that also deserve to be heard in there. And really talking about water, I want to say those people living along the banks along River Nile are not safe, because the rising water levels in Pakwach could also mean it's going to be happening here in Western Sub-region. And looking at the regions, the districts in the region in Western Sub-region that also border River Nile, districts like Madiokolo, we have districts like Obongi, districts like Moyo also that are going to be affected by that. And today we have seen also the roads being very, very much destroyed also really by these rising water levels. And that is one thing also really with the constant rain that we are seeing today, definitely we need to also really be very, very much careful with our roads. And if at all we can protect them, let's protect them, because as a few days ago I was able to see buses belong also really to companies that operate in Western Sub-region, finding it difficult to also really move on these roads in there. And that is one thing also really now we need also really I work towards on, and as we're seeing these rains, let government also maybe have a process of first of all tarmacking these roads, because if these roads are tarmacked, and then definitely challenges also of such caliber wouldn't also come in place. And that is why we're going to be leaving that discussion aside, and I hope you as the viewer also can still share your thoughts and share your opinions also really on what also really we are discussing this morning. And that is where we're going to be leaving the discussion. And now it's heading into one of the top stories that has been making rounds this year. This in relation to the commissioners who awarded themselves the 1.7 billion. And now information coming indicates that these people actually obtained the money legally. And what does this mean to those who have been also really raising their signatures to also really censor these committee members in there? Because now court has declared that these persons also really who have been investigated over the 1.7 billion scandal are actually not criminals. They obtained the money legally, except that also really some channel was not respected. And who actually obtained, how did they obtain the money is what also we need to find out, because people had actually been raising a lot of money. And one of those people also really, these are the 4 commissioners, including Solomon Sirwanyi, we have Esther Foyachan, that man, we have Matthias Impuga, and also really that is also really one of the legislators in there. But now information also really coming indicates that these people actually obtained the money legally. And what does this mean? And now, sitting in Kampala, we have the Justice Douglas Kerkona Singiza, the disciplinary also committee action. regarding service award, which the court ruled also lawful in that means it is not a challenge of these commissioners, but rather August 12 of 2004, we did see Sigiza also of the Advocate of Civil Division of the High Court, or the Department Secretary, so to institute disciplinary also actions against that is Kasaija within 12 months of his involvement in the Progressive Service Award. Because this matter has always been there because people termed it as corruption. And for this to also really award themselves this 1.7 billion, where Matthias Impuga took 500 million, and the rest also took about 400 million for themselves in there. And that is one thing also where we did see the judge say, they given the evidence also really of the duty by the clerk of parliament also really during the decision making and implementation of the idea. It was actually not the mistake of these colleagues, but rather the clerk of parliament. And now the court ruled also that the decision dated May 6 of 2022 authorizing the payment of shillings 1.7 million that is to Matthias Impuga, former leader of opposition, and the the other 3 backbench commissioners was legal. And this is also something we did see where Parliament awarded shillings 500 million to Matthias Impuga, who was by that time the leader of opposition Parliament. And that is also where we did see Solomon Siragi, who sent also obtained that 400 million. Press Zimbabwe also that of Rwanda, Parliament. Also that indicates also it is not actually a corruption way that this people obtain this money. It is a legal manner that this people obtain the money through. That means for those who are also really yapping that these people are corrupt, so here and there, now it is clear that court has declared this money legal. What do you also think about it? Where do you think the mess was? And what do you think about court's decision to also really now come out to say that these people were actually not criminals? This money, they obtained it in a legal way. That is where I will be able to need your opinions on. Feel free to keep them coming through. For those who are watching us via Facebook, keep the comment coming through there. I will be also heading in there to check through some of your comments. And for those who are also watching us via YouTube, feel free to also drop that comment in there. For those who are watching us via X as well, feel free to also check your comment in there. All you need to do is check our handles. That's Western Television, tag us. Tag the KOKOLIRIKO live show. I will be also in position to go through some of the comments in there. And that's why we're going to be leaving that discussion aside, but still going on. And it's really some issues, some people have also been raising concern over the same matter. Now talking about the concerned citizens, we have Daniel Bwete, also the earlier sued Parliament Commission, arguing that the Service Commission was illegal and without also inquiring into the procedure which the Executive and Parliament adopted while exercising their respective functions to issue this money to these also colleagues in there. That's something we did see also bring a lot of challenge, and also with many also raising questions on how these people obtain the money. But I want to inform you now that these persons obtained the money legally, and the service award was actually legal. And then that calls for us to also really stop now making complaints here and there, and also really making allegations of people obtaining this money illegally. And that's where we're going to be leaving that aside. I know what that means to the people who had actually been raising a lot of complaints. That means we are still following up on that matter. What are they going to be saying exactly? I will be coming also to let you know if at all there is any development to that. And leaving that aside, Kase Clergy told to preach prosperity. Also really development gospel is another story that we are seeing on the paper this morning, where Kasese district leaders have been urged to preach prosperity and also the sustainable development there, and also the piling on the faithful or Bible preaching only. That means without preaching alone. You cannot also really pray to God without work. That means people now must work hard as they continue praying. That means also really where we are talking about ICT and National Guidance State Minister Joe Godfrey Kabiang also made the call on August 10th of 2004, also really at the closure of the 9-day Seventh Adventist camp attended by over 2,000 people, and the event was also really held at Kinyampara SDA Church in Bukonzo, East Constituency, that is under Kase District, where Kabianga said also it is unfair and productive to people to keep also in one place for 9 days also without also them having also a message of hard work in there. And remember, One leader who has actually been preaching the socio-economic transformation gospel, that is Job Richard Matua, has always talked about also really people not leading also really poor people. He has always asked the poor, the religious leaders to actually talk about poverty eradication programs, where he has always raised concern of it being difficult to actually lead people who are very poor. And that is one thing also which I feel it is now timely also for these people to also learn a message from that, and at the end of the day that would be quite well to also really make sure that this matter is also really given prior attention. And that is one thing also where we're going to leave that discussion aside with. And as we are still witnessing raids in the Western Nile sub-region, and now people have been cautioned, these are motorists have been cautioned against also really the heavy rains, where the roads and bridges are going to be also really affected in there. And that is one thing also really where we're seeing also really where caution also really to motorists have been raised, and that is one thing also really which we're following up on. And motor traffic on different routes in northern Uganda and eastern Uganda have been diverted after rains wreaked havoc on the roads and bridges. Uganda National Roads Authority on Monday raised a red flag asking motorists and also to take caution, stated also in the public notice in there. And River Tangi has been also burst its banks, impacting also really a section of Oluyo Pakwach Road near the Pakwach Bridge. That means already they are right now, if you are to move to Kampala or else other areas also really that connect Kampala to also really Western Nile sub-region, you may find it very difficult, and that's also when it comes to the road sector in there. But we are saying, as a driver, if at all you are to move on this road, if at all you are to travel to another part of the country, make sure that your mindset is not only locked. Make sure that you also you're in position also really for these challenges that may also really maybe affect you, and also the challenges that you may encounter as you on your way to Kampala in there. Now motorists traveling to Pakwach from Masindi, from Pakwach are advised to use the Masindi Chisanja Park Junction route, which passes through the Matution Falls National Falls until the water level subsides. And relatedly, also UNRA issued another warning, alerting also the public about the diversion of heavy motor vehicles due to weakening of the bridge. Also along Sironko Muyembe Road in there. That means also it's not only happening in the Western sub-region, the entire country is actually also really being affected by the heavy rains that is also really impacting negatively on our road sector in there. And remember, Uganda's main transport mode is actually the road sector. That means also we need to put a lot of resources into developing that industry of the road in there, because looking at the road infrastructure, this is actually one of those roads that many people also really use on daily. It is actually commonly used mode of also transport in there. That is where we travel by road, and that means we need to also develop our road. Many people actually live and die without testing any other mode of transport. Let's say water transport. Many actually also really die without testing that. But each and every time people are using the road sector, that means developing the road sector would actually be good, and also if it's developed well, that will also really make sure that we avoid tendencies of also really suffering when it comes to rains, because many of the times people complain of the road sector also really impacting negatively in there. That now UNRA has come out and also ask people to also make sure that they when they're driving on these roads, they are actually tuned, and also they can also be able to also use the alternative roads that have been gazetted in there. And that's where we're going to be leaving that discussion aside with, and still looking some of the stories. We still have in Daily Monitor where state attorney charged with soliciting 100 million in land deal is another story that we are seeing on the paper this morning. And remember, today when we talk about corruption, corruption is actually one of those vices that has eaten up the country. Many are actually also complaining about this vice. But now, how can we end corruption in this country is another story also we need to also put emphasis on, and we need to also turn our mindset on and put our focus as we talk about this matter. And now, corruption scandal has rocked the Ministry of Justice, with the state authority attorney charged and remanded to Luzira prison for allegedly soliciting, that is showing 100 million bribe from a litigant also already involved in a land dispute in there. That is quite unfortunate, because as a state attorney, we do not expect you to involve yourself in cases of corruption, and that is one thing also where we did see Mr. Tam Tusubila, the 3-year-old state attorney at the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, was also arraigned before the anti-corruption court on Monday, and also on Tuesday yesterday. That is where we did see him also already in a court presided over by Grade 1 Magistrate. That's Mr. Esther Simwe, who read the charges already corruption against him, but he denied the 16 charges and was advised to also already apply for bail in there. Now, through his lawyers, Mr. Tusubira applied for temporary release, arguing that also the offences are bailable, and he was substantial also judiciality is also in there. And that is one thing also we did see for you to now start bailing, also getting, also demanding for bail, other than also just being a good citizen. That is quite unfortunate. And according to also the prosecution on October 21st of 2023, Kampala City, Mr. Tusubira, while employed as state attorney, also listed that's 2 million from Ronald Yahweh as facilitator also to handle and manage his case, and that is number 0184 of 23, and also further alleged that he accepted the shillings 1.2 million, also 1.2 million from Yahweh as also gratification also for managing his file. In the now prosecutor also Theopista Nam and with Viola to Singular from Office of the Director of Public Prosecution said that Mr. Tusubira received several bribes also totaling to 30 shillings 100 million to manage also Mr. Yahweh's land case between October 21st of 2003 and also January 23rd of 2004 in Kampala, also to manage the case in there. Really, I want to tell people who are corrupt, definitely you are going to be giving that money. And as you're giving that money, one thing I also need to remind people is that people are recording you. People are also following up, and nobody wants to give a bribe when they're happy. This is one thing also those who are involved in corruption should understand, that I'm going to be giving you money as bribe, but I'm not happy about it because I'm feeling the pain of giving that money as well. And once these agreements fail, definitely people find ways of reporting. And where they report to, they report the responsible authorities, and that is where you find yourself in trouble. And that causes also for tendencies of corruption. And that is where I want to also encourage the civil servants to also really learn from this. More so working government need to learn from this also really, that at the end of the day, if I told you you're going to be engaging yourself in corruption, that is how you are going to be landing yourself in trouble. Because trust me, there's nobody who wants to give money as bribe. I'm repeating myself, there's nobody who wants to give money as bribe. Much as they pretend that they are happy, also they need your services, they need your favors in there, but trust me, nobody is happy about that because people do not want to give money. There's nobody wants to actually let money go like that. Nobody's happy about that. That is one thing also which I now want to call upon people who are involved in corruption to learn from, both the one who is giving and then the receiver. They need to learn one thing about that. That is one thing also which I feel as we get to the final minutes of the first hour, people need to learn from, because corruption has actually affected the service delivery and also affected the justice system. And that is one thing also where people now, most especially those who are charged also with the duties of also promoting justice, need to learn from, because if at all they did not learn from that, then definitely we are going to be seeing so many people still engaging in corruption, which may not be right and which may not be good. And that is one thing also which we need to learn from. And court documents indicate that State House Anti-Corruption Unit also in collaboration with Criminal Investigation Department and Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions arrested Mr. Tusubira following a complaint against him in there. Now it's alleged that Tusubira, while representing government in court, Mr. Tusubira also solicited a bribe of 1 million from a plaintiff who had sued the Ministry of Lands and Attorney General for the regular also the cancellation of his title in order to also assist the plaintiff in obtaining compensation. Now documents also reveal that at the time of arrest, Mr. Tusubira had received approximately that's 43 million from Mr. Yahweh, and that is one thing also which we did see him also being arrested for. But how do we make sure that this issue also pertaining corruption also does not go on? Because when it comes to land, today you realize most also cases in courts of law are actually land related, or else they have a direct connection to land. And that is one thing also which I feel at the end of the day we need to talk about, because corruption is really one of those vices that has really stopped the development of this country. And who is to end corruption? It is me and you to also really make sure that we end that vice. And if at all we not also do that, we are still going to be singing the song of corruption, 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 and we do not also find solutions to that. And that may not be right, and that means me and you have something to do and to end the corruption solely we are talking about in this country. And if at all we are to do that, then definitely we are going to be attaining the development that we want. Because corruption has eaten the country. It's actually one of the dangerous cancers that is said to be eating up the economy. And that is where we're going to be leaving that discussion aside and looking at also the World Breastfeeding Week, which just ended. And now the new Food and Nutrition Bill aims to protect breastfeeding rights in Uganda. And in fact, there is a new bill that is actually to be developed and also tabled before Parliament, where the Parliamentary Alliance on Food and Nutrition Security Committee has finalized also plans to table a food and nutrition bill aiming at providing special protections for breastfeeding mothers and their children. And today you realize many mothers not actually properly want to breastfeed their children, and that is where I believe if the bill comes up, then this will actually be addressed in there. And now speaking to the media after presenting the draft to stakeholders in Kampala on Tuesday, Ms. Esther Kuru from the Parliamentary Legal Department stated that the bill also already empowers the Ministry of Health to establish measures addressing the nutrition also needs to pregnant mothers, ensuring that they give birth to healthy children. And this is actually why we need the bill. And today, with also the mothers also going through a lot sometimes when it comes to issues of nutrition, where some husbands not support them, this bill would actually come out and address such concerns. You see a breastfeeding or lactating mother, the husband is not there, and the husband has money, but the person, instead of also giving this little money for the wife to eat good food, for the wife to take good milk, for the wife to actually enjoy herself, because that period is actually where they lose a lot of minerals. It's actually said that they lose a lot of nutrients, which they need to also gain back. And how are they going to be gaining that back? It is actually through good feeding, where they actually require to take a lot of juice, where they require to take a lot of milk, and they're supposed to eat good things. But really, you realize the husband is not there. They abandon them. I don't want to say this bill needed to come out yesterday, and this would actually deal with such men who are better also not supporting their wives enough. And what about the mothers who don't want to breastfeed their children? You find after 1 year, the wife says, my child is already grown up. They start feeding this child on milk that is artificial, and that is where I also really want to look. I also want to have this law to address that concern, and such mothers also needed to be arrested and also be charged. If at all they cannot be taken to prison, let them be taken for community service and also do community work in there. That would also really help address the concerns of mothers who are today there to act as slave queens, who don't want to breastfeed their mothers after they recommended 2 years, because at least the recommendation is 2 years. But really find after not being also recommended by doctors, you find a person willingly also just says, this child is grown up, I'm not going to be stopping to breastfeed the child. This law will also deal with you, and that is where we need to also make sure that we continue pushing out for this law, because if at all we not push for this bill, and then definitely we are going to be seeing people still suffering with the challenges of not breastfeeding the children to the right level in there. Mr. Milton Muhuma, the chairperson of the Parliamentary Alliance on Food and Nutrition Security and the MP for Kigul South, said also that the committee before also that would also make sure that also they present the bill in Parliament before the end of this month in there. And Mr. Muhuma emphasized that the bill aims to create an enabling environment that is food security also across Uganda in there. And that is quite important. Food security is actually very, very much important. And where families also need to feed their family, where family heads need to now feed the family very, very well. And as a family head now, this is also where the bill may also catch up with you. And Ms. Agnes Chirabo, Executive Director of Food and Rights Alliance, expressed concern that the private members' bill and nutrition cases already stating that it's already is in the country standing, and that's where this law is actually needed, and it's actually going to be addressing on these matters. And now the law on breastfeeding, the Uganda National Breastfeeding Policy of 2017 also promotes exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months, while the Uganda National Nutrition Action Plan 2018, the initiatives for breastfeeding also the promotion and support, and now the Ministry of Health Breastfeeding Guidelines 2019 of care also the healthcare provides essential breastfeeding guidance, and additional labor disputes arbitration and also settlement act of 2006 protects breastfeeding employees from discrimination. That means as a breastfeeding mother, you are not supposed to be discriminated also at workplaces. You are supposed to also continue with that duty of breastfeeding that innocent baby child in there, because that is actually your right. It's actually the right of the baby to have access to food, and that is why the breastfeeding also really becomes very much important, and that is why those laws are there in place to make sure that people actually have the rights of breastfeeding their families in there. And with that, we are coming to the end of the discussions in the first hour. And remember, earlier on, we are also really able to discuss a number of issues, and I was able to also inform you about the death. And remember, the country is actually mourning. For you who is joining right now, we as a country are mourning the death of Tamale Mirundi, one of those political commentators who has actually been there to also really respond to issues of current affairs. And for those who actually we are there, we actually looked very much into what he would respond to some of the issues pertaining also the country in there. But today we are mourning him, and he died last night, and we still continue to also really pray for his soul to rest in eternal peace in there, as burial arrangements already in place, and we with many actually looking out for many wondering where he will be buried, and that is also really where we are going to be following up on. And for those who in the central Uganda, definitely you will be knowing also, you must be knowing what I'm talking about, and the man I'm also talking about in the names of Tamale Mirundi in there. And also for those who have been followers of what continues to happen in the world of current affairs, definitely still you should be knowing the man I'm talking about. That is in the names of Tamale Mirundi Jr. We take a short commercial break, and when we bounce back, we still have lots more where we are going to be keeping you informed. And remember, an informed person is one who also will be making informed decisions, and also one whom public are going to be also very much trusting on, and we are there to also keep you informed. And we take a short commercial break. My name is Farish Majid.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Kylian Mbappe! Jude Bellingham, Vinicius Jr., Lamine Yamal, Antoine Griezmann. La Liga comes to Star Times.
A wild celebration!
The big stars, the tiki-taka football, Real Madrid and Barcelona live in your living room.
Real Madrid, a team of dreams!
Catch all 380 games live and in HD on Sports Premium Channel 259 and Channel 246 starting this August 15th. Subscribe to StarTimes Classic or Smart Bouquet at 36,000 Uganda shillings to enjoy the football experience affordably. StarTimes Football and Limited Passion.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
All right, welcome back from that short commercial break. In case you're just joining us right now, we are 3 minutes after 8 o'clock, which is our second and last hour of the show. And we still have lots more that we are going to be discussing with you. And earlier on, we discussed a number of issues, and also issues pertaining to the development of this country and also the safety of the citizens as well, because each life matters, and that is why we must mind of also the lifestyle and also the people in there, because if I do not mind about them, then definitely we are going to be also facing the challenge, and also them also suffering those challenges in there. And remember, when we talk about issues that continue to happen in the country today, most of the issues have also been channeled towards what we call economic transformation, and also now we're also seeing these issues also really affecting the country in there. But now, how do we make sure that also what continues to happen in there does not also really affect the progress of or the development of this country? And that is one thing also really which I feel I need to talk to you about, because as we get to move on with the show, so many issues continue to also really happen, and so many also issues continue to come out of in there. And remember, it being also the rainy season, experts have warned the roads also may be also destroyed in there, and that is why we need to also be very much cautious and also really very, very much also really serious as well. We should not also really avoid it. We should avoid tendencies of extracting sand, and this is actually what a common practice I've been able to also really witness in Western Sub-region, where people go into these roads and also really pull off the sand that has also really been brought in there by water, and that is why we are saying people now must desist from those tendencies, and that is actually one of the causes of also really the muddy road also that is being affecting the movement of people today, and that calls also really for individual responsibility. We need to avoid tendencies of also really extracting the sand, and if at all people are doing this in our communities, we need to come out and also really sensitize them, and we need to also really encourage them to also really desist from that practice, because that is what is causing also really havoc on our roads and also really challenge also to our road sector in there. And that is one thing also really which I feel I need to keep you reminded of, and I need to also inform you that we need to also really avoid and also desist from in there. Now, the Gulu Archdiocese, in partnership in Bukona, recently also signed an agreement that is also to supply cassava to a factory, and which is only to take its start up to now. And what does that mean? That means we need to also do a follow-up on that, and that is one thing also where we did see the former also Archbishop also Emeritus, that is John Baptist Odama, coming out to criticize government also for failure to fulfill its commitment, and also a deal with Gulu Archdiocese to commercialize cassava production in the northern Uganda. In there is another story that we are seeing us. And now what is John Baptist Odama saying? He has actually said government has failed us on the cassava deal is actually what we are talking about, and that is one thing also we need, which I feel I need to keep you reminded of. And in his first remark, also in 4 years after also the signing of the agreement, Archbishop Emeritus Odama Baptist also already expressed concerns that also already the agreement also already could stand also already might face also collapse, failing also already, as that is also already where the agreement has failed to stand. That is after 4 years, just after the deal was signed for COVID-19, but up to now they are not seeing any fruits yielding also from that deal, and many people actually engage in that project. And what does this mean to those also who have been also following up on that? And in an interview also with the Archbishop Emeritus Odama also explained that the partnership established just before COVID-19 also already involved, that is both the church and the government, but up to date it is not actually yielding. And now the government had pledged to provide seeds and cassava stems, but failed to deliver, leading to the frustration also really among the farmers who had prepared also really extensively also really to participate also really in the growth of the cassava in there. Now the agreement also included plans for a stretch factory in Paderi district also really, which was intended to process the commercially grown cassava. However, Odam also noted that the construction of the factory never materialized in there. And what exactly happened and what went wrong is also we need to also really find out. And now, despite the initial setbacks, Archbishop Odama also already acknowledged that the recent discussions with the government have rekindled hope for the project also in there, and he also really cited that also the tractors and the other equipment provided by NADS also really, for the project have been reassigned for other purposes, as they were also left unused in there. And what does this mean? If at all this project also could have stood in there. Today we have many people who have engaged in crop production. In Western Sub-region, we have seen many actually engaging cassava production, but many also really are there without the market. And what does this mean if at all we also just consume our cassava for food, yet we can actually turn this into other products? If you look at cassava, it is actually one of the materials that can be turned into making alcohol and also really for other products in there. And really, if at all we just continue to consume for food, and then you move around, you see many people plant cassava. And this will also need the market, and such factories, in my own opinion, would actually address the concerns of the market in there. And in a road district particularly, we have seen also one of the factories already being established, and we hope that with also the coming of the national grid, this would actually yield and also yield the intended purpose of it being established in there. And now, during a meeting with the Agronom Irrigation Project, Museveni also announced that cabinet had approved that is a budget of shillings 33 billion for the financial year of 2020-2024 financial year, that is to support Archdiocese in commercializing and also industrializing cassava production across the northern Uganda in there. Now the Gulu Archdiocese also in partnership with Bukona Group Processors Limited mobilized over 20,000 farmers across the 3 cooperative organizations already to supply cassava to the factory that was also to be also established in there. Now in August 2021, the church also signed another agreement with NADS extending the cassava growing initiative, that is to Agago in Kitgum and also in Amuru districts as well, in addition to other actually districts involved since the scheme began in the year 2017 in there. Now Dr. Samuel Mugasi, the NADS executive director, confirmed that nearly 33 billion billion had been embarked. That is to boost also really cassava production. NADS would provide financial and technical support, while the church's role was to mobilize and organize farmers to receive the materials in there. That means the finances would come from government, but now the church would also do its part in terms of mobilizing the people into production of the crops in there. And that means we need to also this deal. We need to also have this deal materialize, because if it materializes, we are going to be seeing many people also benefiting from this initiative in there. That means me and you have to rally the people behind this project, and that means we need to also make sure that we call upon them to actually embrace this project. And now he proposes synergizing the parish development model with the cassava project, also really believing that and also full and unified efforts between local governments and the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Trade could yield positive results. And further, Ekun lamented that despite continuous reminders to the government about the project's really importance of financial technical assistance had been provided in the past 3 years in there. That means this project is actually very much important, and that is why church continues to pursue it. And that means we need to also continue calling for this project to be materialized, and that would also really employ a number of people in there, not only for Acholi sub-region but the entire northern Uganda. I would actually benefit from this project. And previously the government had also allocated that shillings 1 million but to annually, that's the project in 2018 and 2019, but also when COVID-19 also came, this also really ceased. That means the 100 million also really was not able to be received in there. Now more than 5 years the project received, that is 8 billion both in cash and also in planting materials. But before the pandemic disrupted its project, feasibility studies also conducted by Uganda Development Cooperative Corporation also for establishing a starch factory in Acholibur was submitted also to the Office of the Prime Minister and Office of the President as well as the Gulu Archdiocese in there. And now Dr. Charles Aben, the officer in charge of the Cassava Consolidation Project, that's at NAS Secretary, explained that the project was progressing well until 2021, when the budget constraints for NAS also forced it to also install in there. That means the budget also for this project had maybe been seized, and that is why the project also failed in there. Now Dr. Aben added that with the shillings 3 billion previously allocated, NADS managed to supply, that is 75,000 bags of cassava cuttings to farmers in 2018 and 2019, continuing support the project despite the financial difficulties in there. And that is one thing also really we need to also really understand and also really address on as we move on with the show. Remember, so many issues also continue to happen in there, and that is why we must also really follow up on. And that is one thing and one area at the end of the day that will be very, very much important for us to also talk about on. And as we move on with the show, so many of this continue to happen, and that is where also we are going to be leaving that discussion aside. Now talk about politics. And remember, in politics, so many people are now doing politics, and with many actually terming what we call the Thanksgiving ceremonies as a political drive. And what do you think about it? Because many people have actually come out to criticize Thanksgiving ceremonies, that this is actually a political motive, and why many actually cite the timing that these people were voted long ago. But why are they coming now? This is actually where many people are saying that this purpose for the Thanksgiving is actually a political one. And now talking about also politics, we are seeing also really political parties restructuring ahead, and now one also that has affected is NUP, where the Kayunga NUP also leaders elections have ended in a fist fight, and that is one thing also which we did see happening on the stories, and that is also we are seeing as headlines also on one of the papers this morning in there, and I feel I need to keep you reminded of. And now what is happening in Kayunga is also really happening across all, where NUP is actually voting its structures ahead of the 2026 general elections, where they are being voting also where the elections being conducted for the different positions in there. And a meeting also organized by the National Platform Party, that's at the headquarters to elect parties Kayunga district office bearers, also ended in chaos after supporters from the three political camps in Bale constituency engaged in a fierce fist fight. And Monday elections which were also presided over by Dr. Moses Kanabi, the opposition party also the national organizing secretary, and Farida Nabatanzi, the party's Buganda Liberation, that's at head in Toke resort in Kayunga district sub-county, was meant to elect the party's also district and constituency leadership, and that is where we did see it ending also in chaos. And we are going to leave that discussion aside, and let's turn into FDC, where FDC stands hit, that's on Museveni, over Kitezi landfill tragedy is another story that we are seeing on the papers this morning in politics, where the opposition Forum for Democratic Change party says the political leadership of KCA is blaming the wrong people over the also tragic Kitezi land collapse in there, where the Katonga-based FDC faction also came out also say anyone to be held responsible for what happened in Kitezi should be President Museveni, who took over the administration of Kampala in there. Now this message was made by Ibrahim Samujunganda, the faction's spokesperson in press briefing. Their officers also already yesterday in 2010, and he said in 2010 Museveni changed the law and enacted also already through Parliament the KCA Act that gave President also already a direct responsibility over the city, and also Kitezi was one of those in things also that we are seeking to take over, and that is where now the FDC Katonga faction is actually blaming the President, His Excellency Museveni, for the tragedy that also really happened over the weekend in there. He said also people shouldn't blame KCA, but rather should blame the head of state in there. Now they accused also KCA of also having ignored several red flags before the incident also already took place on Saturday in there. Mr. Semuju called government to swiftly compensate also really those affected also really in the incident, where President Museveni already has directed the UPDF Special Forces Command to assist in the rescue mission. And now the Katonga-based faction say the disaster was a direct result of negligence and also really poor waste management by the authorities in there. And that is one thing also we did see, where the police yesterday also already confirmed 21 bodies had been retrieved, more than also 14 victims also rescued, with several more feared buried under debris in there, and several livestock also were killed as well, and property also worth millions lost following the collapse of the landfill in there. Now FDC Katonga faction also already say the victims deserve immediate financial support and justice also already in there, and that is one thing also which we did see happening in there. And as we get moving on the show, and remember these people are still in pain and also in confusion, panic, and also the pain in there, because with many wondering on where to go, and that's where the victims also are finding it difficult. And on Saturday, which was August, part of also Kitezi West developing site in Wakiso collapsed, and also killing many people in there, with property such as houses being destroyed. And we also see information from there also indicates one of the areas has actually developed cracks. That means first of all, relocating this spot timely is actually good before this also garbage also causes a havoc again in there, because we need to see that that area that is actually as not good must also make sure the people who are residing along there must be relocated, and also waiting for them also to have this negative backlash happening in there. And that is where we're going to be leaving a discussion side, but still what continues to happen with also Kitezi. Nabanja also draws the line on Kitezi residential areas. That is where we see the Prime Minister, Right Honorable Robin Nabanja, also drawing 200-meter radius of the Kitezi landfill Wakiso district to vacate the area immediately. And while addressing also residents of Kitezi yesterday afternoon, Mr. Robin Nabanja said that this is meant to ensure their safety. Also, really, that is also, this comes after days after part of the landfill collapsed on Saturday, leaving also really more than 20 people dead and properties destroyed in there. That means relocating also really timely is actually very, very much good. And according to information we did see, she said, don't go back there, stay here also within the tents created to accommodate also the affected residents of the landfill also collapsing in there. That's what we did see Nabanja also addressing and adding also ensure you are registered so that you can find effective way of planning for you in there. Remember, Prime Minister also is one of those areas also where people rush out to very, very much, and that is also where there is when there are disasters, and now she has come out and also given that also the directive also for the port also be relocated in there, which is quite good because government has land. And one of those areas which I feel also this should be located on is those areas which government bought, and also that would also help serve also as emergency areas. But sometimes you see people being rescued, but we see them going back. Others only saying that this is their ancestral land, this is where their grandfathers stay. They go back. Really, I want to give an example of those who are in Bududa, who are located also to districts of also Western Uganda districts. But we saw them relocating back. This is only what we didn't see happening in Chiradongo, where people were kept, but we saw them going back. And what does this mean? It means that people are also not also sometimes minding of their health, and that is why it becomes also very, very much difficult. And now during the meeting, Ms. Nabanja acknowledged that someone slept on the job, which led to the tragedy, and that's where people are blaming KCA for, and that means the environment experts under KCA could be consuming money without doing the job, and that means why didn't they ascertain also this negative repercussion and this negative havoc that would also really affect the country in there if at all they are doing their jobs rightly, and that is where many people are going to be blaming them. And earlier, several sources told us that at least 14 excavators were digging through the rubble also in search of also and rescue of people also in there. Now, Mr. Nabanja also said government would provide 5 more excavators to boost the exercise in there. Now, the government is also giving 75 billion to families who lost their loved ones already on that's during the tragedy, with each one also getting 1 million for 5 million for those who lost their lives, and also really to the families of those who lost their lives, but now 1 million each for the survivors in there, and that is where we are going to be leaving that discussion aside with. And now let's jump into Ginger, where the British tourists honor Ginger Hospital with new orthopedic ward is another story that we are seeing, where British tourists involved in a road accident in Ginger, where they received treatment also at Ginger Referral Hospital, have pledged to construct a modern orthopedic ward worth 900 million. That's at the facility as a gesture of appreciation in there. Now, Dr. Alfred Yai, the hospital director, also explained that in 2022, the tourists also including Mr. Samuel Leeds, visited various parts various parts in Ginger and also Bosoga sub-region. Unfortunately, they were also involved in a road crash, and we also evacuated the hospital for medical care in there. Now they are coming back also to make sure that they give back the community, and that is why we are saying, as medics, you must make sure that if at all anybody is brought to you, you must make sure you help this person out, because you never know when this person also will be coming back to support you. And now we are seeing tourists who got accident also in Ginger Road in there, but now they have come back and also make sure that they are going to be also constructing an orthopedic ward. That's for the health facility in there. That means we need to also make sure as medics we support people irrespective of who they are. That would also make sure that they, when they go back and also think about us, they come back and also still extend the services that we need in there. And now according to Dr. Yai, the proposed also 900 million orthopedic ward will also feature modern orthopedic beds to accommodate also the patients of all categories, and is expected to be commissioned by President Museveni in the first week or so of October, and will be named that is the Samuel Leeds ward in there. And that is one thing also where we did see Dr. Yai emphasizing that the new facility also will significantly alleviate the challenges currently faced by the hospital and staff also really, and we will be improving also that's on the quality of the care of patients, and that is why we need to also make sure that this facility is actually developed and also improved in there. Now, you know that existing ward constructed in the 1930s lacks privacy for both patients and healthcare workers, and it accommodates solely both male and female patients, and it is actually shared by those. Now, additional Ginger Hospital located also the highway often also receives over 40 accident victims weekly, and that means also it is actually why it is very, very much important for the doctors who are there to also make sure that they respond to the queries and also the demands of those who get accidents on this road. Because if you look at 40 people being also brought, that is at the health facility weekly, that means the numbers are very much overwhelming, and that means developing this facility would actually be quite good. And now Dr. Arafat Kubulwau, a border rider from Nzeru municipality in Buikwe district, shared experience also regarding the facilities, where he said also his colleague sustained a leg fracture in an accident also already, and noted that while the hospital his staff is dedicated, the facility suffers from poor ventilation. That is where also they were able to sort of face challenges while they were admitted in the now Ginger Referral Hospital, also commonly known as Ginger Hospital, was established in 1930s as a health unit for World War II also combatants and prisoners of war. However, the facility also really now has kept on changing, and up to now it is now a regional facility. Now the district hospital eventually to a regional hospital for the eastern Uganda, that is in the year 1995, where it was turned into a regional health facility in there. And that is where also really we need to sort of make sure that if accident victims are brought on to this hospital, we must make sure that we give them the care now that also really a European from somewhere has come out to also really appreciate and also really give back to the community. And that means as citizens, we need to support this project. We need to support also such initiatives so that also at the end of the day we are not also affected by poor infrastructure in there. We are going to be leaving that aside. Let's move into Kapchora, where Kapchora official reminded over PDM cash theft is another story that we are seeing on the Pasmoni. Remember, government of Uganda is actually rolling out what we call the Parish Development Program, which is actually running with many already receiving the money, but many of these projects already are not yielding fruits because of issues of corruption. But many people have actually also been hit by the challenge, where the money for parish development model is actually said to be disappearing. Now, a parish chief attached to Kapchora district government has been remanded on charges of obtaining money by false pretense, and also beneficiaries from the parish development model that is in Kango parish, that's under Kapsinda sub-county, that is also in Kapchora district. Now the accused is Ms. Shamim Chebet, who appeared before also Kapchora chief magistrate, that's Gibson Muhangi, on Monday, and was remanded to Kapchora government prison until the 22nd of August 2004. That is also where she will be battling this challenge. And according to charge sheet dated that's August 12th of 2004, Ms. Chebet and others still at large Also, we are charged. Also, we are obtaining money by false pretense, contrary to Act Section 285 of the Penal Code Act, and also the cap of 228 as amended, as well as abuse of office and conspiracy and extortion also in there. That's where they were charged. But as a civil servant, you have your own salary, but why must you still be engaging yourself in that money, that little money government is giving out to help the poor also really move out of the poverty bar line in there? And that's really how it becomes unfortunate. And that is why such leaders must be reported. And that means if at all you as a beneficiary is asking for money from you, you must make sure that you report them. And at the end of the day, you get the justice that you deserve. Now, furthermore, Chebet collected shillings 1 million from, that is Janet Ayeko, and shillings 6,000 from Emmy Yapchemong, and also shillings 6,000 from Richard Kemonges. 1,075,000 in there, and that is how she got arrested for. How much is your salary as a civil servant? Because I do understand that your money could actually be more than that, but you're still not appreciative of that, and you still go on picking money from these local persons in there who are still vulnerable, because a person who receives the money is actually expected to be a vulnerable person in there. Now, the arrest was made during an ongoing investigation by the State House Anti-Corruption Unit in collaboration with police, following a presidential directive to investigate the graft in handling of PDM funds. That means already this matter now needs to be investigated, and that should also go as a warning to you who is watching us right now within also the Western Sub-region or Northern Uganda entirely. If at all somebody comes and asks for money from you, for maybe processing the papers, because in most cases they come out in guise of saying, we are going to be using this money for processing the papers, we are going to be using this money to fix your name on the list. Report this matter to police, and police will carry out these investigations, and such people will be arrested and thrown out of that job in there. Now, Ms. Mara Natasha, the unit spokesperson, already confirmed that investigations are ongoing across the country to bring to book all the culprits involved in the misuse of PDM funds in there, because many people are blaming government and also and other leaders for also not realizing the project and also the aim of these monies. But some people are playing with this money, and that is where, really, in my own opinion, bringing this people to book would actually be quite well. And now, CP Regional Police Spokesperson Fred Chesang also commented the incident, also stating that the suspect had been charged and with obtaining money by false pretense, and that is where also they would be brought to book also for those cases to be answered in. And now, leaving that aside, school management in trouble over missing P7 candidate is another story that we're seeing in the paper this morning. This is on the Daily Monitor, where police in Greater Masaka are investigating the disappearance of a pupil that is from the school premises. That is where we did see also that where Asadu Kakoza, 15-year-old primary, also 7 candidate, also has vanished. That's from rural kindergarten day and boarding primary school in Kinoni Town Council, that's in Luengo District, on April 26 of 2024. That is also where now police is carrying out that investigation. And according to Ms. Mariam Naku, Kakoza's mother also, she received information about her son's disappearance on April 30th also, but the school management has not done enough to establish the whereabouts of this child in there. That is why we need to also investigate this matter, because many times, sometimes we see schools also really hiding the pupils after dying. They hide the pupils, and that becomes very much difficult. And I was able to also see documentaries in Kenya where a child was really believed to be murdered, also really by the school, and the school also really hid information from that. And that's where government also needs to come out and investigate where this learner is. Let them also come out to squeeze at the school to establish where this child could have gone, because as a primary 7 candidate, we do not expect the child to go missing for days. If at all the child went home, we still need to find out where the child went and how did the child also find out, maybe disappeared from school. And we did see Mr. Ibrahim Kayondo, the director of Rural Kindergarten and Day Primary School, say that Kakoza also disappeared, and the management also assumed he had returned home in there. Now, how do you assume? Did you try to find out where this child had gone? These are questions only that need to be answered. Now, according to Mr. Kayondo, one of the people saw Mr. Kakoza walking out of the school, reported that he was wearing a red t-shirt, casual t-shirt, and blue spots were also with his name engraved on it, and it was unfortunate that he did not return, and also informed even his close friends where he was going. And where did this child go to? These are questions only we need to understand also as we get moving with the show. And Mr. Kizito Mbanga, the chairperson of Kinoni Town Council, suspects that Kakoza may have been kidnapped by individuals solely intending to also psychologically torment the parents of the child in there. But now that's where we need to also tell our children, about tendencies of also what we call people who are there to kidnap. Kidnappers are there. We need to also tell our children about that, because if at all we don't tell them about kidnappers, then definitely they are going to be causing challenges, and they are going to be also affect the challenge, because sometimes we have seen people being killed after being kidnapped, where the parents fail to realize the money that these kidnappers ask. It becomes dangerous, and that's why we need to tell the children to also really avoid moving alone, and let them also really make sure that when they are moving to certain places, they must make sure they inform their colleagues, and that would also really help address the matters of being kidnapped in there, because kidnapping is actually a challenge, where we've seen families also really losing a lot of money after their children are being kidnapped. And be it grown up, you can still be kidnapped, and that is where we're saying people now must be very, very much serious, must be very, very much vigilant, and also really must be in the know of what is happening. And that's where we see, if we see people who are maybe whom we don't trust, we need to report to police, we need to report to relevant authorities. And this is where in schools need to be told about these bad people, and that is where the schools also need, school authorities need to come out and sensitize their learners about what we call kidnap, because kidnap is actually the reality, where also really we have seen people losing a lot of resources at the end of the day, with many also really losing lives in there. And that's why we need to come out and sensitize the young ones about the dangers of moving alone, and about the dangers of moving in the company of people whom we don't know, and that would also really put them in danger in there. We are coming to the end of this first half of the second hour that will be ushering us into the final minutes of the show, and this is the KOKOLIRIKO live show on West Nile TV. We are there on channel 477 Star Times. For those who are watching us this early mornings, thank you so much. Keep the comments coming through, and I will be going through them later on. For those of you who are as well watching us online in the social media platforms, for instance YouTube, Facebook and Twitter, we are saying we are there also to also listen to your ideas, and also listen to your thoughts and opinions, which we do not take for granted in their field. Feel free to keep them coming through, and I will be going through them later on. My name is Farish Majid. We are going to be taking yet this important quick breather that will be ushering us into the last minutes of the show. Stay tuned as we get to you back.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Kylian Mbappe! Jude Bellingham, Vinicius Jr., Lamine Yamal, Antoine Griezmann. La Liga comes to Star Times.
A wild celebration!
The big stars, the tiki-taka football, Real Madrid and Barcelona live in your living room.
Real Madrid, a team of dreams!
Catch all 380 games live and in HD on Sports Premium, Channel 259 and Channel 246. Starting this August 15th. Subscribe to StarTimes Classic or Smart Bouquet at 36,000 Uganda shillings to enjoy the football experience affordably. StarTimes Football and Limited Passion.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
All right, welcome back into our final half of the discussions. This is the KOKOLIRIKO live show on West Nile TV channel 477 on StarTimes and also on 0073 on Zuku and online across all the social media platforms, and where you can be able to solely access us each and every mornings. That is from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock. And with me, Farish Majid, we do this each and every Mondays to Fridays. And today is Wednesday. In case you're just joining us right now, welcome aboard. We're in the middle of the week, and that means today it is the 14th day into the month of August. We're already 49 down into the month of August, which is the 8th month in there. But now the question is, how prepared are you for the end of the year? Because we are getting closer to the end of the year in a terrible speed. That means you must now start assessing yourself now in terms of the big plans that you wanted to achieve this year. If at all you haven't achieved, I want to say we are still young. The month is still young in there and the year is still young. You can still do in the remaining days. That means you must now start strategizing and also planning ahead of what exactly you wanted to achieve. And it's still quite possible, and all you do is what we do, hard work and prayers, because without prayer still you may not be able to solely achieve what you want to do in there. And that is where we're going to be starting off our discussion in the second hour, and also in the last minutes of our second hour, where we also talked about a number of issues earlier on, but now we are now talking about issues of compensation. And remember, recently people came out also to ask for compensation, and now cattle compensation, Lango leaders threatened to storm parliament, is another story that now we are seeing on the papers this morning, where a section of leaders from Lango sub-region have threatened to mobilize the masses to march to parliament, that is to protest the delayed livestock compensation. And in the financial year, the government allocated shillings 50 billion, that is to each of the three regions, that's virtually Lango and Teso, to compensate individuals whose livestock were stolen and killed during a 2-decade insurgency of the LRA in northern Uganda. And recently, the team in Western Sub-Region was able to also really meet members of parliament also really on the committee that is responsible for their compensation, also really where we did this, the committee directing that these people also really be compensated in there. Because looking at the LRA insurgency, which was about 20 years in northern Uganda, many people also lost a lot of property, where in Western Sub-Region, most of the business community will also lost a lot of monies, and today we have over 1,000 people who are demanding compensation of about 99 billion from government also to make sure that they also really get compensated in there. And that is where we did see these people joined under the umbrella group of West Nile Kony War victims also already coming up and also really demand also for government also really compensate them in there. And that is one thing also really now we are seeing those in Lango sub-region planning to protest and move to parliament. And in Arua City, we also saw those also already marching to the home of the president, that is at the presidential lodge, just also next to Antoniafio in there. And that's where we did see them moving and also storming the gates, also demanding for compensation. And that is where we did see them also saying that their colleagues have died in the process of also making sure they get the monies, and they do not want to die maybe before getting this money. And that's one thing also we did see happening in there. Now in Lango sub-region, the same cry is coming up, where the section of the leaders have threatened also to move and mobilize the masses to move to parliament in there. That is to protest against the delayed compensation in there. Now, in the last financial year, we saw government allocating shillings 50 billion to each of the three sub-county regions. That's virtually Lango and Teso for the to have them compensated. That's for the livestock they lost during the insurgency. Now, in Lango sub-region, the local leaders solely say only a few people benefited from the compensation package, with many left out in there. Now they say the cattle compensation has become a political tool used by the government also during every election period, and the one that if people also are not compensated, the ruling government also the party will not get votes in Lango sub-region ahead of 2006 general election. Now the leader of district member of parliament, Ms. Linda Auma, told the Parliamentary Committee on Government Assurances and Implementation Friday last week that the cattle compensation issue has been delayed for a long time, and also now they are now demanding also for the money to also have the compensation, and with many also have passed away and without also getting the money in there. The same scenario of the climates dying is actually also happening in Lango sub-region. That means the timing is not also favoring them in there. Now, Mr. Aruma said that in the last financial year, The government approved and also the compensation for the 2,000 people. Also, whose names were allegedly removed from the financial list that is provided also by the Attorney General list, that Attorney General's office, and that means many also were removed in there. But only out of the 42,000, only 23,000 also really got money also in there. That means many were left out. And Ms. Josephine Omar Olili, the Kwale District Resident District Commissioner, said the district had 1,719 claimants, but only 625 were compensated, despite the Attorney General claiming that 923 people were actually paid in there. And who paid them, and where were they paid, and where did they get the money from? These are questions also we need to now find out. Could it be somebody pocketing this money? Definitely, this is where we need to also investigate and find out. And now, Mr. Benson Dila, the Oyam District Chairperson, said that 3,016 claimants were approved for compensation, but only of these 316 were paid in full, and also where we did see 359 got less than what they were also supposed to get in there. And he asked the Office of the Attorney General to release enough data cards that to verify all individuals who can receive the compensation in there. Now, Francis Abola, the Otuke District Resident District Chairman, said many of the elderly claimants died before receiving the compensation. That is where it is becoming a challenge. Why must also the government wait for this to also die before getting their money? Now, the Deputy Chairperson of the Parliamentary Committee on Government Assurances implementation, that is Honorable Joyce Bagala, also already say they gathered also already a lot of complaints and also the unfulfilled government promises from West Nile Sub-Region. Actually, Langwan tells us that the committee will present the report to Parliament when they go back in there, and that is where we see a lot of challenges also really when it comes to the issues of the compensation, because many people are now not happy about how government is compensating them, and with many also really citing irregularities also really when it comes to this process in there. And that's why we're going to be leaving that discussion aside with government tasked to prioritize youth problems. Another story we are seeing on the paper this morning, where as Uganda commemorated International Youth Day celebrations yesterday, recently lawmakers and also other stakeholders tasked government to address the socio-economic and socio-political problems afflicting also the young people also in the country. And the stakeholders also said instead of spending money on celebrating the day, the government should have also offered practical solutions to the youth employment. And the Kalangala Woman of Parliament, Helen Nachimuli, advised government to revise the youth policy and the wage bill also in there. And Mr. Frank Kabuye, the Kasanda South Member of Parliament and Shadow Minister for Youth and Children Affairs, urged the government also to involve the youth leaders also in while addressing the challenges of involving the young people in there. And that is one thing also we did see happening in there now. And we did see that also happening, but how do we make sure that issues pertaining to the youth are addressed? And remember, this week on Monday we celebrated the Youth Day, and which to me is actually still the Youth Week. We must celebrate youth for an entire week, and celebrate the youth just for one day, in my own opinion, is not right. And that is why we will continue talking about issues happening and also pertaining to the youth until the end of this week, because we need to also make sure that also these matters are also addressed in there, because if at all we not address that, and then definitely issues pertaining to the youth are not going to be addressed, and also the youth will continue to also swing in poverty, and which may not also be right in there. Now, Honorable Balambia Gogawa, the State Minister for Youth and Children Affairs, under Minister of Gender and Labour Social Development, while presenting a statement that is on the Youth Day celebration in Parliament last Thursday, also listed several initiatives by the government to empower young people, such as youth livelihood programs, the women also entrepreneurs program, and also the youth venture capital fund, which many youths also do not know about in there. And he said under the national apprenticeship scheme, 90 youths were skilled, and the pilot scheme, and with more than 200 expected to graduate in November 2024. That means skilling is actually good. However, Ms. Nancy Achora, the woman in Parliament for Lamo, called for need, that is about the youth with equipment after training in there. And that means without training, many youths are still going to be remaining the way they are, because if I have the skills but I don't have where to practice the skills, it becomes still nothing. Because really, if you don't have the skills, we have the skills but we don't have the practical, maybe machines, then really it's indeed a great challenge. And that's why today we see many of these skilling initiatives failing, because the people after graduating, they have hardly where to go to, and really finding capital also becomes a challenge for them, and that also makes many pull off in there. Now, Mr. Karim Masaba, the Member of Parliament for Industrial Divisions in Bale City, advocated for minimum wage law to curb that's the exploitation of youth at workplaces in there. That means they are calling for a law to be also already to be developed, that's to address that matter in there. And that is why we're going to be leaving that discussion aside with, still looking for Coelho's matter. Yesterday I told you the court will be sitting, and the court sat and found Coelho guilty of war crimes. And that is one thing also, story I cannot also leave out this morning, where former warlord, that is under Lord Lieutenant Army Commander Thomas Coelho, has been also found guilty of war crimes and crimes against humanity. That is also where we did see the High Court Division sitting yesterday, where the former child soldier turned rebel commander in the notorious LRA rebel group that maimed and killed for fun in northern Uganda, northeastern swells of the country between the 90s and also the early 2000s, was found guilty on 44 counts, including murder, kidnap, and also pillaging, and that is also where we did see him also found guilty of, and he denied all the 78 charges that we also brought against him before the International Crimes Division that sat in Gulu City yesterday. Now, Gulu, northern Uganda, was one of the areas and one of the districts in the region that was terrorized by the LRA for more than 2 decades. That means for 20 years, the area also faced insecurity in there. And of the remaining 34 charges, Coelho also was acquitted of 3 murder charges, and also the 31 other charges were dismissed against him. Now, Coelho had also pleaded that he was not liable because also he himself was a victim, having been abducted by Kony and forced to become also a cold-blooded killer, and was captured in DRC Congo in the year 2009. In 2021, a senior LRA commander, Dominic Ongwen, was jailed for 25 years by ICC, which also decided also not to give a maximum life sentence because he had also been abducted as a child soldier and groomed by rebels also who had killed his parents. Coelho says he too was abducted by the LRA soldiers at the age of 12 years while he was on his way from school. And that is one thing also which also really where this man feels he deserves to be heard, and that would also really make sure that also he addresses his concern in there. Now he becomes the first LRA commander to be tried by Uganda court in what also the BBC said marks a watershed moment for the country's judicial system. And in the dock in Gulu City, Coelho was also laid in a dark suit and red tie, as he had also showed an emotions linked to expected to the verdict, and he simply also the man also walked in and also lost his emotions. And the judge read out the names of the civilians who also he killed also in the cases in there. Now, one notorious incident was an attack also on a camp for displaced civilians at Pagaki, northern Uganda, in the year 2004. Dozens of women and children were beaten to death with wounded barbs also in there, and that's something where this man also is being tried. And Kony's highly notorious LRA claimed to be fighting to install government based on the 10 commandments of God. And that is already where we saw these people and the group of LRA also be also investigated and also be tried for. But also he would spend 2 decades killing and also maiming his own people, and the group was notorious for chopping off people's limbs and abducting children also to use also as soldiers and as sex slaves. And the prolonged also war also displaced people, and thousands of people also in northern Uganda also would continue to bear the brunt of war to date in there. And now the LRA first also operated in northern Uganda, then shifted to DRC and later to Central African Republic, and that's also where we also saw an end to this. And update, we do not know where they are, with many saying they are still in the they are still in the Central African Republic. Where are they exactly hiding? And update, we still looking for where exactly. We shall be also finding out where Joseph Kony and the group also will be also brought to book in. Now the group has largely wiped out, but Kony remains exclusive and appears beyond capture in the now. He's wanted by International Criminal Court for crimes against humanity in there. And remember recently the ICC also came out to say that Kony will be tried in absentia. That means even if he's not arrested, but his case will be going on, and that is also the way investigations already also against also him, and also to find out if at all he indeed committed the crimes against humanity. While the also government had previously extended an amnesty to LRA rebels who renounced also war in there, Coelho was not given us the pamphlet and now awaits his conviction in there. And that is where we are going to be leaving the discussion aside with. And remember, so many of these stories also continue to happen, and that is where also I feel this matter also needs to be addressed in there and also need to be found out. And that's also where solutions to this matter also really need to be found out, because if at all we not find out solutions, that is where it becomes very, very much difficult for them to also really address certain of these matters in there. Because if at all we not do that, then definitely it is going to be a challenge for also the matters to be addressed in there, because at the end of the day, that is also the way it becomes a challenge also for these matters to be addressed in there. Remember, also court convicts Coelho of 44 charges is also what we did now, the International Crimes Division, also of High Court, also on Tuesday evening, also convicted also the LNA commander of 44 charges out of the 178 slapped against him, and that is where also it becomes a really great challenge. While reading the court judgment, Justice Michael Olubu, also the lead also of the 4 panel judges, who say the court confirmed and also convicted Koelo upon confirming the 44 charges, while it dropped also several others against him. Now judges also convicted are on counts 5, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, 20, up to 92 also in there, where also this man also will be also brought in there, where others also have been dropped, and notable among those also dropped against him include 14, 17, 20, 22 also against him also being dropped in. Now the ICT sitting in Gulu has also acquitted Koelo on 3 charges, so that if that it found lacked evidence that to commit him. For example, also that is also why we did see 1, 2, and 3, where other judges already on the panel are Duncan Gaswaga, and not forgetting Stephen Muiru and Andrew Bashaija, who are also already sitting on the same panel in there, also to find out if this man is either guilty or not guilty, because it is their mandate now to also do so. In that interaction, Mr. Caleb Alaka, the defense lead's lawyer, asked court to give them more time to prepare and also engage other stakeholders before his sentences also are done in there. That is one thing also which we are following up on. And Mr. Robert McKay, one of the victims of counsel, said we equally need time as to also find out also on what exactly happened in Koelo's case. Also will be heard, and where we did see also 53 prosecution witnesses and 4 defense witnesses, including legal experts whose roles were to handle large volumes of information regarding the case. Also following up on now, Koelo was arrested on March 3rd of 2009. However, his prosecution has been dragged. Also been dragged, according to also Ms. Juliet Katanga, the ICT deputy registrar. Koelo's trial also kept dragging due to numerous hurdles such as the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdown also, which could not also allow the case also to be heard in there. Now in April this year, Koelo kicked off also defense submission before the court, in which also he declined to plead not guilty, while also detailing the judge also why he should also be acquitted in there. That means that matter also is still there, and that means we are still going to be following up on, and when the last time also comes out whether he will be found guilty or not guilty, we'll still come back and let you know what exactly and how exactly this matter will be ending, because this former warlord was also arrested in 2009, and update that matter is still being investigated, and that is where we are going to be leaving the discussion aside and still looking at some of the stories that continue to happen. Earlier on, we are able to also discuss a number of issues that also continue to happen in the country, where I was also able to also inform you that the money that was also termed to be corruption is actually not corruption money. It is now illegal. Many people have actually been raising concern about also these individuals that they obtained the money legally, but now information also that came out yesterday indicates that this money was actually legally given. It is actually maybe one of the mistakes that was done by Clerk to Parliament, who actually allocated this money in there, but now many people have been raising a lot of queries and a lot of challenges already in relation to this money, but I want to inform them that this money was actually legally given, and that is also where it becomes very much challenging also to pin anybody involved in that scandal money in there. And that is where we're going to be leaving the discussion aside, and now to look at what continues to happen elsewhere. UN chief calls for permanent Africa Security Council seat is another story that we are seeing on the Pasmonis on the BBC, where UN Chief Antonio Guterres has called for Africa to be given a permanent seat at the UN Security Council as part of the reforms to correct the historical injustice in there. Now the Security Council, the 5 also permanent secretary members of which are China, France, Russia, and the UK and the US, has been long criticized for representing also the realities that prevailed at the end of World War II, when much of Africa was still under colonial rule in there. And really for all this while, Africa has not been also having a seat in there. What does that mean? It means that we have been left out as a continent. And really for now, Antonio Guterres to come out and also demand for permanent seat for Africa, that is really quite well, because our ideas can best be raised by us, because there is a saying that usually goes that nothing for us without us. It is because we understand our pains best. It is also who understand the feeling of also our challenges in that becomes also very much paramount for us to also have a seat. That is at the UN General Assembly in there. Now the 10 non-permanent members of the body are allocated by the region, but unlike the 5 also the permanent members, they do not have also power to veto in there, and that is where also it becomes a challenge. And now the African Union has for long been pushing for the continent to have 2 permanent secretaries, where also really matters of national importance also can be also deliberated in there. And now the debate on Monday was convened by Sierra Leone, and its president, that's Julius Maada Bio, made also the case that's of the continent in there. And other UN officials echoed the sentiments for reform, and including that Dennis Francis, the president of the UN African General, as well as Mr. Guterres in there. And Africa was underrepresented at the UN General Security Council and international financial institutions, but overrepresented in the various social challenges that these structures are also really designed to address. In that means Africa's concerns have been raised, but without also an involvement of an African. And that means our ideas have been represented by other people. And what does this mean? It means that our pleas, we are not also really ably being represented. And now he pointed out that almost half of all UN peacekeeping operations we are in Africa, and 40% of UN peacekeepers were African, and that means we need now to have also the Africans being brought on board. And now the UN chief also added the body had failed to adequately align African representation with the continent's efforts and contribution. Now the UN was set and up at the end of the World War II to spare also really succeeding generations, that's from the scourge of the armed forces. Only 4 African nations, including Egypt, Liberia, Ethiopia, and South Africa, we are amongst the founding members. And for Mr. Guterres, the need to change also was not only about ethics and also justice as well in there. That means this man also wants changes in relation to organization of the UN security deal in there. Because no African is on that panel, really it becomes a very much challenge, because these are where our challenges are going to be addressed. And look at Africa. Africa is quite huge, and with a lot of challenges already as well. In that means for Africa to be represented would actually be quite well. And that is one thing also where we are going to be leaving the discussion aside with. And now to summarize this entire day with, journalists have been urged to lead the fight against political tribalism and sectarianism. Is another story that where we want to summarize the discussions for today with the media symposium held in Kanungu district. Dr. Sylvia Arinaite, Deputy Managing Director of National Water and Sewage Corporation, has urged journalists to take the lead in combating also what we call identity politics, as he called up action echoed by Jude also Katenga, the president of Uganda's Below 40, our social mobilization, also a movement under the NRM in there, where he actually asked the journalists also take the lead of preaching against what we call politics of sentiment, or politics also of sectarianism and tribalism in there, because this has actually led to people voting for leaders who are not also really ably representing their ideas in there. That's one thing also really where I need to also talk about, because many times today we see people voting because this is a son of so and so, this is solely son and so and daughter. It becomes very much challenging, and that's where at the end of the day where we need to sort of talk about it as well. As need to keep reminded that we need to keep you reminded of, because if at all we not remind you of that, then it may be a great challenge in there. Because looking at that, that is actually where we have been seeing a lot of people already voting for leaders who would not qualify. But how do we avoid all this? That is where also really I feel we need to also really talk about, because if at all we don't talk about it, then definitely many people are going to be lagging behind, and that's where we are going to be leading that discussions with. And now, as always, to summarize the entire discussion with what's happening in the world of sports, remember the markets are actually busy with many of the teams planning to already now have the new season in there. Now looking at what's happening in the camp of Manchester United, that Manchester United have also reached an agreement with Bruno Fernandes to extend his contract. I remember the player in the name of Bruno Fernandes, who has been the captain of the team, his contract has actually been running down, and now the team and also the agent of the player have reached an agreement also to allow the player stay in there. That's according to information we're receiving from sports guru, that's Fabrizio Romano, who actually also made that remark in there. Now, looking at also what's happening in elsewhere, Juventus and former Arsenal goalkeeper, that's Watches Szczesny, have now reached an agreement also to terminate the contract with immediate effect. Now, that means the player in the names of Watches Szczesny will be leaving that Juventus club also already at the end of the summer in there after his contract has been terminated. That means he will be finding also already a new club in there. Now, Bayern Leverkusen have sent all documents to Robert Andrich's camp in order to get the new contract sealed soon. That means also already as other players, as other teams are looking for the signatures to have new players, others are busy looking to also retain their players with new signatures in there. And that means we need to also look at that. And now Eduardo Camavinga, on his injury, so it has already, as also the player also already is also already said to be injured in that, as we are planning also to have the new season. That means we may not see him featuring at the beginning of the summer and also at the beginning also of the new season in that. That means he may also really be left out due to injury in there. That brings us to the end of today's discussions. I hope you had a wonderful time right from the time we began until this hour of the morning. We say thank you so much. And up next is the news bulletin in Lugha with Fete Manuel. My name is Farish Majid. Let's bounce back again tomorrow, where we shall be discussing issues with the government leaders already in there. We are out.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Kylian Mbappe! Jude Bellingham, Vinicius Jr., Lamine Yamal, Antoine Griezmann. La Liga comes to Star Times.
A wild celebration!
The big stars, the tiki-taka football, Real Madrid and Barcelona live in your living room.
Real Madrid, a team of dreams!
Catch all 380 games live and in HD on Sports Premium, Channel 259 and Channel 246. Starting this August 15th. Subscribe to StarTimes Classic or Smart Bouquet at 36,000 Uganda shillings to enjoy the football experience affordably. StarTimes Football and limited passion.